What's up, guys? Welcome back to the Seeing Red MMA podcast, going over UFC 287, Alexpereira versus Israel Adesanya 2 in Miami, Florida, that just went down. Again, my name is Dustin here, your host. What an amazing card that we just witnessed there, especially the main card, full of bangers. Just jump right into it here. The king is back. Israel Adesanya gets the title back after TKOing, or actually KOing, Alexpereira in the second round with a monstrous combination. While Alexpereira, he was a lot more confident in this fight here. He's coming in, swinging really hard there, especially up against the fence, in kind of the same sequence that we saw the first fight end in that fifth round. But it didn't really favor Pereira in this case here, because Adesanya was able to pretty much tag him with that same shot that he tagged him with in the first fight of the first round, that straight right, and then followed up with the left shovel hook. And this time he had enough time on the clock to actually get the job done. But man, if you're an Israel Adesanya fan like myself, it feels good right now, because not only did Izzy get a finish, which we haven't seen in a while, since I believe Paulo Costa was the last time he finished somebody, but especially against a guy that's people have been saying he's his kryptonite, has beaten him 3 times, 2 in kickboxing, 1 in MMA, to finally get a definitive win and his title back, and also make history by becoming the first middleweight 2-time champion. So he's the only person in the middleweight division to get the belt back. In this case here as well, Alexpereira, he looked good in the first round there. I had him winning on the scorecards up until Izzy actually dropped him there, but doesn't matter. When you got a shot like that landed on you and it takes out your equilibrium, and you get followed up with a shot on the way down and then also a hammer fist while you're on your back, not really much you can do there. But what this means for the middleweight division there, it's kind of tough, because Adesanya has cleared out the middleweight division. There's only one person I can think of that maybe give him a shot, is Khamzat Chimaev, but we also got to see Khamzat against a top-level middleweight fighter, maybe like a Robert Whittaker or a Paulo Costa. And if he runs through that person, then I would assume that's your next challenge for Izzy. But for Poatan here, I honestly think if he doesn't run it back with Izzy, which I don't think he would, I think the weight cut's just too heavy for him. He was like 2 weeks out already starting to cut the weight, and he's just such a big guy for the middleweight division. I think his frame and his body type better suits the light heavyweight division and the type of fighters that are in that division, like Yuri Prohaska, Jamal Hill, even a Jan Blachowicz or a Ankalaev. I think those are guys that he matches up with pretty well. And we never really get to see how well his wrestling defense is. Maybe we see that against some of those contenders at light heavyweight. But I really like to see Poatan go up a weight class and pretty much trying his hand at light heavyweight, where he's not having to cut a monstrous amount of weight to get to the scales there. And who knows, maybe his chin holds up a lot better than it does at middleweight. But nonetheless, Israel Adesanya is now your new and returning middleweight champion there. Such a good feeling there. I'm super happy for him there. And if you're an Israel fan, like I said, you should be feeling happy right now as well, too, to kind of shut those Izzy haters up. Don't get me wrong, he's still pretty cringy. When he was in the octagon doing his post-fight interview, still was kind of like, oh, come on, man. You got to have somebody help you out with these lines, because they are not, you got the skills to back up the shit talk, but, man, he does not have the greatest trash talk there. So good for him, though. It's good to see him back on top of the division that I think he's always been the king of, because even in that first fight, like we all know, he was on his way to winning that fight until he got TKO'd. But nonetheless, then you go to your co-main event here. Gilbertburns defeats Jorge Masvidal by unanimous decision. Pretty definitive as well, too. Jorge had his moments, but Gilbert definitely was the more dominant fighter. He definitely landed the more heavier shots, and especially with those takedowns that he had as well, too, where he's picking Jorge up over his shoulder and dumping him on the ground. Definitely got a decisive win there, and I say we definitely give him the winner of Leon Edwards versus Colby Covington. He hasn't fought either of those guys. It's a fresh matchup for both of those guys, whoever wins that fight. But on a little bit of a sad note here, if you are a Masvidal fan, he did retire after losing this fight, which, he's been fighting forever. back in the Bodog days, even the Kimbo street fight days in the backyards. It's sad to see him go, but he also did the right thing there. I mean, 4-fight losing streak, all of his losses, 2 against Kamaru, 1 against Colby, and then now against Gilbert, all against top 5 welterweights here. So it's not like he went out and started losing to some of these lower echelon fighters in the welterweight division to where we're like, all right, man, it's time to hang it up. I think he went out on his terms. I think he knew going into this fight that this was going to be his last one if he was to lose. I mean, let's be honest, does he get, if Masvidal was to win against Gilbert, does he get past Leon? I don't think so. Definitely doesn't get past Colby. You already see how that plays out, and it wasn't super far back. There's not really much you can change since the last fight. I mean, you got the fight going on right behind me between Colby and Jorge, and I mean, he lost every single round of that fight, but it's bittersweet. Jorge retires, but he also doesn't retire because he's getting knocked out by unranked fighters like some fighters we've come to know in this division here. But congratulations to him on an amazing career there. Been a fan of Jorge since I learned about him even in like the Strikeforce days. And Gilbert, I mean, I think Afro Gilbert is the new mythical fighter. I mean, we got like C-level Kane and other fighters out there. I think Gilbert's going to kind of get in that discussion there. Afro Gilbert, the new mythical fighter. And the fight before that, a fight everyone was anticipating, the people's main event is what we called it. robfont versus adrianyanez. Man, for as long as it lasted, it was a firefight, but robfont was able to actually get the knockout win. About 3 minutes into the first round, was able to land a nice right uppercut. I mean, the way that Adrianyanez was kind of switching angles and whatnot, robfont timed that perfectly. He just came right from the trenches and just boom, right across Yanez's face, finished it up on the ground there. And man, I know we were all riding high on Yanez. I had Yanez going into the fight. I thought he was going to win as well too, but I think this is a good thing that happened to Yanez. Unfortunately, he did suffer some damage. Just getting KO'd is never good for the brain, obviously, but I think this is going to be a learning moment for him. So if he ever does get into another crazy firefight like this, he knows what to do and what not to do. But it's good to see robfont as well, too, get back in the win column there. Because, I mean, we know he was on a 2-fight skid against Jose Aldo and Chito Vera, where there were fights where he was definitely losing. And his last win was against Cody. And that was a 5-round decision where he wasn't able to, I mean, no disrespect to Cody, but he's chinny. You've seen Cody get knocked out multiple times here, and robfont wasn't able to get the knockout win against Cody. But it's nice to see robfont kind of get that fire under him as well, too. I know he's a new dad as well, so there's always been a saying that once a fighter has a child there, they just hit another gear. So who knows? We might see robfont making a real run at the top of that division there and start maybe collecting some names under his belt. But Adrianyanez, he'll be back. He's still a very young guy. He's still got a lot of potential. His boxing is still crisp. I mean, they were trading back and forth. They were both landing on each other. It's just robfont had the better placement there and was able to get the job done. So kudos to him. I would say robfont, maybe give him like a, well, I mean, he was like number 6 going into that. So it's kind of a tough spot there. I mean, I wouldn't give him Peter Yan. I give that to Chito. It's kind of a weird spot that he's in because pretty much everybody in that division is eyeing somebody else at the moment, and robfont doesn't really fit into that equation. Yanez, I like to see him maybe against like an Umar Nurmagomedov. That'd be a good fight for both of them. Kind of face somebody who's not purely a boxer that can throw some kicks and work on that defense a little bit more and those angles that he was trying to work there. But nonetheless, we go on to the fight before that as well too. Kevinholland versus Santiagoponzinibbio. Man, that was a great fight as well too. Holland gets the 3rd round KO with the left hook there. Ponzinibbio was protesting the stoppage a little bit, but he went face down. He got hit with that left hook and just took a dive right into the canvas there, head first. It was a good stoppage there because it was a one-hitter quitter, and all he was going to get hit from that position was just shots to the side of the head while he was face down. So it wasn't like he was going to recover off that. But a great win for Kevinholland there, especially in a fight that I could see him winning, but it was pretty close going up until that fight. This Ponzinibbio was pressuring him pretty good, trying to look like he was about to time Kevinholland with some of these strikes, but Kevinholland's just really good at defense as far as like leaning back and just knowing where his head is. But Ponzinibbio, man, it sucks to see him like this because we all know that he had that fight with Neil Magny in Argentina where he knocked him out in the fourth round and was able to do it in front of his home crowd. And we really thought this was one of those things where, like, man, this guy is going to do bad things to the rest of the division. And he got that gnarly staph infection and got injured and was out for 2 years and came back and got knocked out by the leech. So, I mean, it's kind of been touch and go there for Ponzinibbio. Even in his previous fight with Alex Morono, I mean, Alex Morono gave him some problems as well, too, but was able to get the KO late into the third round. But it just sucks for Ponzinibbio because I was a big fan of his even when he was fighting the likes of Neil Magny and Gunnar Nelson and taking that 2 year off. I was so excited to see him come back. Unfortunately, got knocked out, but I don't think he's done. I mean, he's a little long in the tooth there, and he's accumulated some damage over the years as well. I like to maybe see him. I mean, it's not a fight I think suits him, but if he gets the job done, I think it's a really good fight for him. Vicente Luque is a name that comes to mind. Or even like a Sean Brady might be good for him. I know Sean Brady just coming off that TKO loss to Bilal Muhammad. So, yeah, it's a tough spot to be Ponzinibbio right now. It's a great spot to be Kevin Holland. I know he called out Jorge. He said, hey, Jorge, if you lose this fight against Gilbert, I want you next. Unfortunately, Jorge retires, so I don't get to see that fight. I would have loved to see it. I think that would have been fireworks. But I digress to the main card opener, which I was surprised at, but makes sense though. Raulrosasjr gets handed his first professional loss via unanimous decision by Christian Rodriguez there. Now, that first round, he was all over Christian Rodriguez, but after that, there was clearly a gas tank issue. You saw him gasping for air. He was not liking having Christian Rodriguez all over him the way he had him in those second and third rounds there. And Dean Thomas said it best on the broadcast there, is that when you got these young fighters that have been so dominant early in their career and they do face some adversity, they don't really know how to deal with it. And that was something that we saw with Rosas there. I mean, he'll be back. He's a young kid, but he got his first win in the UFC in September against Jay Perrin there, was able to get the first round submission. So we're like, man, this guy's the truth. He's really good. But he lost to a guy like Christian Rodriguez, an unranked bantamweight fighter who even missed weight. So it's like one of those things where it's like, it was an off night. Is he not as good as we thought? Maybe is he too young? Because there was definitely a strength difference as well, too. Once Christian was on top of him, he kind of like big brothered him the whole time, just held him down. His shots were landing a lot harder as well, too. Rosa, every time he was on the feet, was only able to stand with him for a little bit and then decided to take the shot just to avoid any damage. Got hit with that nasty flying knee, but luckily it landed on like the side right here, almost like the neck to the bottom of the chin. It wasn't flush. If it was flush, I think we would have seen Rosa get knocked out. But he's a young kid. I think we'll see him back. I mean, if he loses his next fight the way he did this one, I think maybe he needs to go back to the regional scene, get some more work in, get some more wins under his belt, maybe go back to like Combates, maybe get in Bellator or something like that, a promotion that helps build fighters and their records to get them ready for the big show. More or less LFA, Combates, like I said there, maybe Bellator. They might try and hold on to him just because of the star power he brings from the UFC into Bellator, but I think he'll be back there. Great win for Christian. I mean, if you bet on Christian Rodriguez there, I mean, some decent odds. He was a plus 190 going into it, so probably won some money if you had him on your bet. And the feature fight of the prelims here, Chriscurtis versus Kelvingastelum there. Now, unanimous decision. I mean, you could give most of the rounds to Kelvin. I had a split decision for Kelvin there. I thought maybe a couple of the judges may have gave it to Chriscurtis there just because he was putting the pressure forward. He was putting Kelvin's back pretty much on the fence there, making him take angles, circle around the cage there. But that was a fun fight. If that doesn't win fight of the night, I don't know what does. Because, I mean, adrianyanez and robfont might take it, but this was over 3 rounds of just straight dogfighting, slugging him out. We didn't really see much wrestling from Kelvingastelum, which is what we thought we were going to see there. But as far as the fight goes, extremely entertaining. I'm still a big Chriscurtis fan. I think he's a fan favorite there. I will always tune in to watch his fights. And it's good to see Kelvingastelum back on a win streak as well, too. I mean, he did drop down all the way to number 15 there. So luckily he hasn't dropped out of the rankings or anything crazy like that. So big win for him. I'd like to see Kelvin maybe get his hands on some of the upper echelon, maybe even like a joepyfer, which we'll discuss a little bit later. But chriscurtis, nothing to hold your hand on. I mean, you had a dogfight in there. He just got the better of you a little bit there. So great fight between both of them, tuning into both the next fights for sure. And yeah, the return of Michelle Waterson, now known as Michelle Waterson Gomez. Congratulations. I don't know how long she's been married, but she took the hyphen. Luana Pinheiro, split decision. I mean, I don't know how you call it split. I thought Pinheiro clearly won that fight there, rocking Michelle pretty much every time she landed hard in that fight there. But yeah, I mean, Michelle Waterson's getting a little long in the tooth there. She's older. She looked great in there too, physically wise. She looked like she put on a lot more muscle and was a lot leaner as well too. She looked to be faster as well. It's just when you get older in age, can't take a shot as well either. If she trimmed down the way she did earlier in her career when she was at this was at strawweight actually. My apologies. But if she maybe excuse me. But if she maybe got into this crazy, ridiculous shape that she was in tonight earlier in her career, who knows? She might have gotten a lot further there and maybe not take as much time off. But yeah, Pinheiro, number 15, getting a split decision over Michelle Waterson. I mean, that just goes to show that Michelle Waterson still can hang with some of the top ladies in that division there. But yeah, it was a fight, decent fight, nothing to write home about. But fight that really excited me going into was Gerald Meerschaert versus joepyfer. Like I mentioned earlier, be a good fight for either chriscurtis or probably more chriscurtis since he's coming off a loss there. But joepyfer gets the first round KO with that left hook, drops Meerschaert there. And as soon as Meerschaert hit the ground, he started covering up. He really didn't even try to get up there. I mean, he wanted out of that fight as soon as he felt that power there. And what a great story from joepyfer as well, too, saying that he was homeless at one point. Dana White paid for his first month's rent at his apartment that's in Vegas. That way he was able to focus on training just because that's how much belief Dana had in this guy there. So big come-up story from him. He coming off the Contender Series, 2 knockouts in a row in the first round there. Gerald Meerschaert, he's kind of like a good contender tester. You can see how well a guy is when you put him against a guy like Gerald Meerschaert, as we know, Khamzat Chimaev. But yeah, joepyfer, I see him going far in this division. I think he's a problem later on in his career, especially once he starts developing maybe slicker combinations, maybe not so looping, but that power is undeniable. I mean, that guy throws heat, and I will watch every single one of his fights. Cynthia Calvillo versus Lupi Godinez. Yeah, that was boring. I'm just going to say it. It was boring. Lupi Godinez gets the split decision win over Cynthia Calvillo. I heard some people saying that they could have seen it going the other way, that Cynthia was robbed, but honestly, after the first round, I wasn't really paying much attention to that. Once it hit the 1.5 rounds mark and my parlay was starting to get some steam behind it, I kind of tuned out a little bit, and then obviously it went to decisions, so yeah, nothing really to write home about. Just sucks that Cynthia Calvillo is on this losing streak right now. The fight before that, the headliner of the early prelims, Ignacio Bahamondes versus Trey Ogden. Man, I don't know what Trey Ogden's game plan was. I guess it was just to stand there, just wait for a counter shot, but with the Chris striker who switches stance, who throws confusing shots, wheel kicks, the whole thing. Bahamondes really had his way with Trey Ogden there. I mean, he pretty much just beat him up everywhere. I mean, there wasn't really any risk of going to the ground or anything like that, but I think Ogden maybe landed like a couple of shots there. I mean, we can maybe even, for this fight, just check to see what the, what like the stats were. Let's see if there's a way I can see the stats. Is it going to let me see the stats? Great, it's not going to let me see the stats. Don't worry. So you can probably find those stats, how many punches he actually threw to landed, the ratio there. But good win for Bahamondes. He really showed how good his striking is. Wouldn't be surprised if we see him fighting within the top 15 here soon. This was at a catch weight, though. It was at 160 pounds rather than 155, which is the normal weight that Bahamondes fights at. But a long, rangy guy who can throw strikes like that, who throws has a confusing style. Definitely see him fighting upper in the division later on in his career. I am going to mess up this guy's name. The fight before that, it is a hard name to pronounce. Kudos to Rogan, Anik, Bruce Buffer for all making it sound super easy when pronounce it, but I'm going to try my best here, so don't roast me in the comments. Shailin Nurdimbeki. One of those. And this other name's pretty easy, Steve Garcia. But, man, it was good fight. Good fight. Nurdimbekov dropped Steve Garcia in that first round. Steve Garcia definitely learned you don't throw a kick without putting punches in front of it, because that's what happens. You get dropped with the right hand, and then you got to survive the rest of the round. But, yeah. Man, I apologize. I got a frog in my throat or something. But Steve Garcia there was able to get the second round liver shot punch. It dropped him, and I watched like the cage side footage of that. When that liver shot landed, you know a punch hurts or a kick hurts when you don't hear the slap. When you hear the slap, it doesn't really hurt as much. It sounds cooler because it's like, man, ooh, that landed hard. But when somebody lands something flush and hard and all you hear is like a thud, or you really don't hear anything, that's when the body absorbs most of the shot there. And that's pretty much what happened there. It sounded like boom when he hit him with that liver shot there. So great win for Steve Garcia. 2 wins in a row now, 2 TKO wins in a row now, coming off the win, obviously, of Nurdimbeki, but also Chase Hooper. So, yeah, that was a great fight. And now, if you watched every single fight like I did, because you're an absolute degenerate, Jacqueline Amorim, I think that's how you say it, versus Sam Hughes. Now, this was a sleeper fight because going into this fight, you had 7-0 Jacqueline Amorim. That's how you say it, right? Yeah, that first round, I thought for sure she was going to get the submission, and I thought my parlay was going to die right then and there. But no, went to a decision like I kind of predicted there, but not in Jacqueline's way. Sam Hughes with the upset win every time. And once the second round started, Jacqueline, once she was like, all right, cool, I'm this much better than this girl on the ground, you could definitely see her trying to go back to there. But she wasn't shooting shots. She was pulling guard and trying to drag Sam down. And Sam realized, oh, okay, if that's how confident you are on the ground, you're probably not that confident on the feet, which is pretty much what won her that, was being the one standing up, landing more shots on the ground there. She started timing that like front kick up the middle and whatnot. But, yeah, she gets the upset victory. I know she's now 8-5 in her professional career and just took an O away from Jacqueline there. So pretty impressive fight for Sam Hughes there. Now, I already saw her press conference interview after the fight. Hopefully this doesn't bite her in the ass, but she already said, yeah, my boyfriend on like Wednesday saw the odds. I was a plus 400 or whatever the number was. He threw $1,000 on me. If we learned anything from the James Krause incident, 1, don't let any family members or anybody related to you, friends, whatever, bet on you, because the UFC will come after you, because this is a legitimate sport and they want to keep it that way. They fought so long to make it a legitimate sport. Don't send us backwards. Or you can do it, just don't tell anybody. I know it sounds cool that you were an underdog and somebody won money off betting off you. That's great. You can still tell the story, but say it was a fan that stopped me in the hallway and be like, I put $1,000 on you. I believe in you, blah, blah, blah. Don't come out and say your boyfriend, your friend, your mom, your dad, your cousin, your neighbor. Don't do it, because it does not end well. You end up like the famous Dana White quote, you go to federal prison. So hopefully it doesn't happen to Sam Hughes there. Hopefully it kind of gets brushed under the rug and we don't really hear about that later on, because that would suck to happen to a fighter that's so new in her UFC career there. I'd hate to see the momentum she has get taken away for just a stupid comment that she has. But, yeah, that was your entire fight card there from top to bottom. But, man, just to reiterate, what a time to be an Izzy fan. Second round KO. It says TKO here, but nah. Poatan was out. The lights were off. He was laying on his back, wondering what happened. And And you kind of saw it there too. I mean, leading up in this week, you saw a different demeanor in Adesanya there. Wasn't really cracking his, being his kind of goofy self as we usually see. He was definitely in there. And I mean, he said one and done. He went in there and did it. Knocked the guy out. Jorge Masvidal, congratulations on a great career. Gilbert, I hope you get the winner of Colby versus Leon. Adrianyanez, sucks he got knocked out. This is a learning moment. Robfont, welcome back to the top of the rankings there. Hopefully you get a big fight here soon. I apologize, Ponzinibbio. That sucks you got KO'd. Holland, keep the momentum going, my man. And raulrosasjr, I hope you can build up more momentum again, man, because I say this, I mean, we believe in you. I mean, I think you can be a top bantamweight there, but you just got to go back to the gym and tweak some things. But overall, that is your card here, UFC 287 in the books from Miami, Florida there. Again, if you like the video, make sure to like and subscribe. Follow me on Twitter at SeeingRedMMA. Other than that, you guys have yourself a wonderful day. Till next time, see ya.